I was wondering a little bit if I'm late to the party, if I should be talking about serverless. It's probably also past its zenith, maybe low code, no code, edge computing. But I still think it's worth to go talk about microservices and architectures now. There's a few good reasons. It's always good to do a retro, learn from what you've seen, what worked, what didn't. The second is we can probably replace microservices with many other concepts, and the takeaway will be the same, keep it simple. And the third one is that the trend cycles in the industry tend to be about 5 to 10 years. So hopefully it's going to come in handy to talk in 2028 or 9 when things get trendy again. Who am I? My name is Vojtech. I work at Microsoft. We build and my teams two things in the Prague office. First of all, we own the perimeter for all of Microsoft identity. So every time you log into Outlook, your kids log into Minecraft, or you go play on your Xbox, every authentication request, or when an Azure VM looks up an identity to connect to a storage account, it goes through our gateway, through our proxy, and it protects all of identity from the internet and all the madness that is happening there. And the second thing is we own the observability standard for identity. So Better Stack, definitely a model for us in terms of usability. I will say our internal tooling, we don't have that success story as Google has, but that's what I'm working on to change. So at preface, this is not a dunk on microservices. I've been very happy operator, author, developer using the setup. I've seen businesses thrive, and we've been able to make businesses grow and succeed using this approach. But it's a tale of caution, and it's a tale of pragmatism. So what have we been sold on? What was the premise that many of the companies based their decision to go wide on? And so I borrowed this famous slide from Martin Fowler. It's very neat, very rational, which promises you that at some increasing complexity, your productivity doesn't drop as much with a service-oriented approach. To Martin Fowler's credit, the article's name is Microservice Premium, and premium doesn't mean I had to pay to read the article or have a subscription. It's in the sense of insurance premium. So what is the extra cost you pay on your insurance policy? And in this case, what is the extra cost you pay for that architecture? There's a few problems with the graph, some very basic, like it was hard to find the labels for the axes, so I put a little red circle there, complexity and productivity. That's the second issue. It's the most two abstract metrics I know, very hand-wavy. T-shirt size, 1 to 10, very complex, not so complex. But I think the biggest issue I have with it is that it sort of puts like a binary decision. It's like services, microservices, and monolith. It's not the case. We're going to get to that. So let's try to quantify. Let's try to find some proxy metrics that help us evaluate that. Most of the teams I know usually measure complexity in the number of engineers, the number of teams. I think products, use cases, fair enough. Productivity, I admit I don't know. If somebody knows how to measure productivity, build a product, $1 million problem. If somebody solves that, some have tried. Don't believe in it too much. But I think coming back to the last issue I had with the chart is quantifying how granular you go. And so let's just talk about something I call N. And why is N important? There's an old programming joke that some people, when confronted with a problem, think, I know I'll use regular expressions. Now they have two problems. So we can adapt that to microservices. And when they say, I know I'll use microservices, they have N problems. And so naturally, what we're going to be talking about is not just the costs that you incur by going wide, but how they multiply. And they often multiply more than N. So, you know, if we try to get all scientific around this, maybe M is the number of engineers. My takeaway for this talk, N should be less or equal to 5. And if you're really kind of like getting bigger, maybe you can try to reason a little bit about it. But if you want to remember one thing from this talk, N less or equal to 5. What actually happens? So in English, I was trying to figure out the right translation from stokrát nic zabije vola. Straw that broke the camel's back is probably the closest I get to. And what are we looking at? I come from Microsoft. Reorgs are a corporate sport. But the worst thing about reorgs is that they are well-intended. They serve a purpose, and usually what's terrible about reorgs are managers that are not able to explain them. Because in most of the sort of the backstages where the decisions have made, there's a good intention behind them. The need of the business is changing. There's a competitor coming up with a differentiator. You're not able to catch up. I don't know, the regulatory environment is changing. And you need to be flexible as a business. And really, the wider you go, the less flexible you become as a business. And it can be a growth limiter. I could, by the way, make this talk about unit tests and how they do the same, but I'll leave that for another day. So changes are needed for the business to stay healthy. And also, people grow emotional attachments, not just to the service, but to the area they cover. And they're reluctant to let go. And they're even more reluctant to take over somebody else's work. The other thing, if I have to pick two things, is this one. And the second one is interfaces and communication. By far, the most frequent source of grievances is not thinking about how the services will communicate. And the decisions you make here will haunt you to the day till you quit or you get fired. And they're really one-way doors. They're not easily reversible. There's a whole branch of decisions. Again, we could go into that. That's 2 hours of talking just about each of those branches. But something that if you want to challenge somebody proposing going wide, broaden this topic out, challenge every edge case, like don't leave any stone unturned. And then there's more. So multi-tenancy, very hard in one service, do it in multiple. Privacy, data deletion, consistently be able to clean up personal and private data of your services. I'm trying to stick to customer-facing use cases. We're not talking about developer productivity and experience. Audit logging, warehousing and analytics have a unified view of the data and customer behavior. Auditing requirements. What most companies do is they pretend they just have one service. They kind of like push it to the little front to the auditor, then kind of ignore all the rest and says, yeah, I got a stamp on that one service. The rest of my stack is compliant as well. But we can like go on and on and on. It's like undo functionality. The most, I never met an engineer which enjoys implementing undo. Point-in-time recovery, it's like to make it more advanced. Feature flagging, analytics. I think I should have put permissions with emphasis. It's one of the hardest things to do. I got stuck on that in my last job. Localization, notification, search. Subscription management and billing, a tricky one. A/B testing. What's terrible about these is that every cross-cutting concern and use case like this will nudge you to create one more service and go even wider. So it's kind of like the spiral that kind of like makes you spiral out of control. So is it impossible to create a well-working service, distributed architecture? It is. I've seen it. It happens. It doesn't come for free. It comes with a lot of thought. And it's probably overkill unless you have more than 100 engineers. So unless you're that, and you probably have some smart people in the team that can handle that, stick to, and is smaller than 5. The last thing is what happens with all these cross-cutting concerns is that the fallacy is that like there's kind of this unique functionality in every service. What actually happens is that your services end up looking like this. And I've done like, WC-L on some of our services in my last job, and this is all something that I've signed off. And there was like 2 directories, src/app, src/infra. And the ratio of boilerplate and cross-cutting concerns to the actual customer value add would look like something like this. And that's lines of code doesn't mean productivity, but it definitely does mean some effort. Might change with copilots and stuff. But the fact is that it's something you need to run. And there's a good saying that code is a liability, it's not an asset, and you need to take care of it. So again, main takeaway, if there's nothing else, unless you are big, unless you have a good reason to do different, stay small, stick to simple, stay small. End of slides.